Hello and welcome. My name is Kane, and hopefully I'm going to help you become a better Hearts of Iron player in online multiplayer. Welcome to my first video. It's going to be on infantry template design, and that is because I still see so long after the game's been released players making the same mistakes in infantry template design, and even on Discord servers and sometimes TeamSpeak servers, new players I guess, just making the same mistakes. So hopefully I'm going to cut that out, do my bit to get rid of these mistakes. So today in this infantry template designer, we're going to talk about combat width, which is the most important thing, the actual makeup of your infantry divisions, the mix between artillery and infantry. Then we're going to analyze support equipment. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of special forces. Finally, we're going to talk about why Space Marines are bad, how to counter Space Marines, so-called Space Marines. Then we're going to talk about soft attack monsters, which is what I mean when people stack artillery on infantry divisions in so-called meme servers without rules. So the first caveat is this guide is based around Discord or TeamSpeak games where they have the basic rule, which is pretty much universal. One dispersed artillery or one dispersed artillery or anti-tank per 10 combat width. Okay, that's pretty much universal rule, and even if you're playing, and even on honestly, I'm going to explain why. It's pretty much the way to go, even on games where there is no combat width rule. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with combat width. The optimal combat width is 40, not 20, not 10, 40. With few exceptions, it is 40. A lot of players seem to still think that 20 is better than 40 because they can sometimes fit more divisions into the fight. It's not. You will get pushed by the superior stats on a 40 width division, and people will just yell at you over Discord. Avoid it, go 40 width. Now, what are the exceptions? Okay, the exception is when you've got a field marshal with the offensive general trait. This reduces your combat width by 10%, all right? That means you can actually go up to 44 width, which is great because your infantry divisions just become better, okay? Look at that, 44, your actual practical width will be 40, and look at all these stats go up. That's great. So that's really good. Just be aware, when you're fighting, you will need those divisions. Whenever your divisions are in combat, they'll need to be led by a field marshal with that offensive doctrine trait. If they're not, then they're going to be the unoptimal width, and you won't be able to fit as many divisions into the fight as you could, and that'll be really costly for you. So just remember that. Now, the other exception is you can sometimes exploit with 10 width, you can exploit the reinforce rate. It's a bit of a cancerous strategy. I think France can use it if they want to try and hold France. And I think China can also exploit the reinforce rate with 10 width divisions. But generally, in almost every situation, a 40 width division is far better. 40 or 44 width divisions, far better than your 20 and 10 width divisions, okay? All right, let's get into actually the template itself and what you should put into it. So pretty much the standard template is 4 artillery, what's called dispersed artillery, and 14 infantry. This is your standard. You'll hear it talked about. Your 14-4. When you've got your offensive combat with offensive trait field marshal, you can call it the 16-4. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit at this point about special forces. Okay, so infantry are pretty standard, but why would you go? Let's say you make your entire army out of Marines. Well, for a very important reason, because Marines and Mountaineers are generally better than infantry for the fact that when Marines need to cross rivers, they have a huge bonus. Look at that. Cross river, huge bonus. And crossing rivers is an integral part of this game. Often you'll see, for example, the Soviet Union will defend along rivers, right? So you want to defend, you want to be able to cross them with Marines. So for example, Romania should always exploit their entire army being out of Marines and cross those rivers, okay? Obviously, the United States and UK will have to D-Day, so their army should generally be made up of Marines, okay? Marines obviously have a huge bonus to amphibious landings, so there's no reason not for those countries not to build Marines. The other one is Mountaineers. So Mountaineers are really strong on mountains and hills. People often forget the Mountaineers get a bonus fighting over hills. A lot of provinces are hills. You might as well have that extra bonus. So what are the trade-offs for going special forces over just standard infantry? Well, they cost a bit more guns to produce. You need to produce more equipment to equip those divisions in the field. Plus, there's a couple of other things. For example, if we go here to infantry, these basic things here, these infantry upgrades, don't affect special forces to the same degree as they affect standard infantry. But the trade-off again is special forces have their own trees here to make them stronger. But remember, remember a theory called something called opportunity cost. Okay, that's the next best thing that you could be doing. So obviously, special forces require you to spend research on these upgrades, whereas standard infantry just require you to go up here. And you should also, I mean, even if you're going Marines, for example, or Mountaineers, you still get these upgrades. So in that respect, infantry is cheaper in terms of research than special forces. And you might not consider that much of a trade-off, but it is, okay? Remember opportunity cost, because everything in this game snowballs, okay? So decisions that save you production, save you research at the start of the game, right? That carries through for the entire game. And in that sense, we're gonna move on to support equipment, actually analyzing support equipment, because this is where I see so many players make mistakes. So let's have a look. The things that I recommend all division templates, infantry division templates have is obviously support integrated, what's called integrated support artillery. It just makes your divisions better. And engineer companies. Engineer companies increases your entrenchment, increases your movement over rough terrain, increases your defense on rough terrain, increases your attacks on forts. It's really important. Engineers are great. You should always have them in your divisions. So what else should you put on? Well, my recommendation is, if you've got the production, to go firstly for signal companies, okay? Signal companies do an important thing, and they increase your initiative. Now, why is that important? Because it enables your divisions to reinforce faster, okay? And reinforce rate is obviously really important when you're constantly fighting, when there's CAS. Reinforce rate is important, and support signal companies increase that. The other thing they do is that they enable you to plan faster. Now, a lot of players don't use the planning bonuses. I suggest you use planning bonuses. It's really strong. You don't have to use whatever plan that you've created as long as you've actually got that planning bonus. Okay, you can exploit planning bonuses to give you up to 50, 60% attack. I think it's crazy. It's awesome, and so you should exploit it as much as possible. Now, if you don't have signal companies, sometimes it can take up to 60 days to build up planning bonuses. Obviously, that's not viable generally on a fluid fight. Okay. So getting signal companies will enable you to build up planning bonuses faster and reduce that time. And maybe you start the fight with only 20% planning bonus, okay? But that's still really important. That's still strong. It's 20% stronger. Now, on some countries, that's really important. So Japan, when they take China and then they're trying to crack the British Raj, and they're often held up here on what's called the Dachau line, they can just sit there statically building up the planning bonus and then activate the plan, attack all along the line, right? With huge bonuses to their planning, to their infantry via the planning bonus. It's really important. So, but think about it. Think about, before just chucking signal companies on, I want you to think, are your infantry divisions going to be fighting a lot? Is that what's going to win you the game? All right. If you're Germany, for example, okay, how often do your infantry attack? Or is it just your tanks that attack, create the encirclements, and then your infantry just fill the gaps? Think about that. Are you going to do like a general order to offensive order against the Soviet Union? Probably not. So really think about that. How integral your infantry. Don't waste production. Remember opportunity cost. Don't waste production on extra support equipment. All right, for signal companies if you don't think you're going to use them. All right. Let's go over the ones that are just absolute trash for infantry. Never use maintenance companies in your infantry divisions. It's never worth it. Infantry equipment's cheap. You'll be able to produce it. Don't put maintenance companies there. Military police, always trash. Don't do it. Cavalry are better at suppressing provinces. Field hospitals, you'll never really save enough manpower for it to ever be worth it. And most countries don't ever really have manpower problems, to be honest. So you just, even if you're a small country with a small manpower law, you just increase your manpower law. Okay, you'll never save the manpower for it to ever be worth it. Logistics companies. This is another one. I see some players doing it. Like, think about logistics companies. Yes, so it reduces the amount of supply that you're using. So let's say if you're fighting in a poor supplied area, that can help you. Okay, but how much is it going to help you? How much are you going to fight in poor supply areas? Are you fighting in the Low Countries of France where supply is high? Well, then it's a waste of time. Are you France and you have this crazy strategy or cool strategy where you're going to fight the German tanks in like this horrific mountainous terrain in Algeria where supply is so low and the German tanks are going to be out of supply all the time, and you can exploit that with your Mountaineers, all right, with your 14-4 Mountaineers, and you chuck on supply, the logistics, and your divisions are always supplied, even though you've got like 30 divisions here. That might be effective, okay? Might be effective, but have a plan. I really can't stress this enough. Have a plan. Don't just chuck stuff in. Really analyze the cost benefits trade-off, okay? Analyze that opportunity cost. All right, the next mistake I always see not always, but a lot of the time see is they just chuck on support anti-tank. All right, cool. So this gives you 40, let's say with 45 piercing, right? And this is with it upgraded, okay? This is with it quite upgraded, okay? Now, is that gonna be enough to pierce the tanks that you're fighting? A lot of times I see UK players, and when I first started playing, I was guilty of the same mistake. I put anti-tank in my infantry division and I upgrade it. And I have this division sitting here on Alamein, a very strategic province. And I think I'm gonna pen the German tanks and I'm gonna stop him here at Alamein like a hero, right? Now the problem is the German tanks are gonna be generally medium 3s, 40 width, and look at that armor. The armor is generally gonna be 71. What's your 41 piercing gonna do against that? And you're gonna get overrun real quick by the German tanks. It's a waste of production. Look at that opportunity cost. You could have been building fighters. You could have been building artillery. You could have been building anything, right? You could have been building heavy tanks maybe to hold them there. So really think about your anti-tank. What are you fighting? Are you Raj and you've planned this and the Japanese player used light tanks in China, right? You're Raj, maybe you should build integrated anti-tank, right? Maybe that's a great strategy because you can pen the Japanese tanks on the Dachau line, and the Japanese player's whole strategy is thrown away and all that production's wasted just because you were smart enough to think ahead and put anti-tank in your divisions. So do it at an intelligent place. If you're holding France, make sure you research anti-tank ahead of time, and then you use your bonus to get the piercing you need. So really think about it. Don't just chuck it in. Have a plan. All right, anti-air. Generally, I don't recommend it, but think about it. Have a plan. Is your opponent using a lot of CAS? Is he going to have air superiority? Maybe you do need anti-air then. Maybe it'll be the balance. Generally, it won't, but at least think about it. Have a plan. Never wastefully just chuck it in, all right? All right, so that does the support equipment. We've analyzed that enough. Let's talk about so-called Space Marines. So so-called Space Marines is when they chuck in, a heavy, normally it's a heavy tank, but for sake of argument, we can just put a medium tank. And generally it's really heavy SPGs because they're so production intensive, okay? And they chuck these into their infantry divisions, and that means their armor is 29, and that means they can't be penned by an infantry division that doesn't have support AT. And that means their infantry divisions will be able to push your infantry divisions, because if you can't pierce another division, their attack is so much higher than yours, okay? Now, what's the big problem with this, chucking tanks in infantry divisions? We'll start with generally most servers don't allow it, but let's say you're in an all-welcome game and it does allow it. Well, you can just need to chuck in an anti-tank division. Anti-tank support company. Look at that. Your piercing's 45. You'll pierce them. Problem solved. And all the production that they wasted spending in, putting tanks into their infantry divisions, down the tube, down the drain, and you'll have a massive production advantage over them, and you'll be able to produce actual dedicated, tank divisions, and you'll be able to, encircle and beat them. And again, even if you don't, let's say you don't put anti-tank in your division for some reason, all right, and you're taken by surprise, you didn't see it coming, okay? Yes, their infantry can push your infantry, but they won't have the production to have dedicated tank divisions, and you will. And if you've got dedicated tank divisions, if you're Russia, and you've got dedicated tank divisions, and the German player just put tanks in their infantry, you'll be able to just encircle them, and you'll crush them, all right? So that's why I think Space Marines, they're trashed now. Years, when the game first came out and people didn't know how to deal with them, yeah, they were effective, but now Space Marines, so-called Space Marines, they're trash, even in all welcome servers that allow them. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about really is in all welcome games without rules, you'll see some players stack artillery. So they just stack artillery like this. And the idea behind this is to just try and maximize soft attack. You get it up to obscene numbers, and then that means that they can actually push your 14-4 infantry divisions. Now, what's the big weakness behind this? Again, it's so production intensive. Remember the opportunity cost. So you have to spend so much more on towed artillery. And those factories could have been put onto tanks, planes. Now the big problem is, again, these monstrous soft attack divisions will still get pushed by tanks, dedicated tank divisions. You'll still be able to break them. You'll still be able to encircle them. The other problem is, if you've got air superiority and they don't, and you should have air superiority if they're spending all this production into artillery, these divisions will still lose to your 14-4s with air superiority. You build CAS, it'll make it even worse for these monstrous soft attack divisions. And again, the most important thing is, generally the Hearts of Iron games are decided via tanks and planes. That's what decides the game, right? Not soft attack on your infantry divisions, generally, for most situations. So stacking these monstrous soft attack divisions, it's not a smart plan. And you'll generally just get beaten by a player that wisely uses their production, wisely understands the concept of opportunity costs, okay? All right. The last thing I want to talk about is your general staff for special forces. Stack, if you're going Marines, stack the general staff, so get the commando expert, okay? If you're going infantry, get the infantry expert. But I actually learnt this recently. If you're going for Marines, for example, the commando special forces attack and defense actually affects them, of course. And I learnt this recently. So does the infantry. They're counted as infantry as well. And I didn't know this until recently. KLS told me, a friend of mine. He actually told me that it does. So that stack it as well. And that can really make your special forces really strong. Really, really strong, particularly Romania. How it can get really strong special forces across the rivers. All right. That concludes it. If I've missed something or you disagree and actually have a proper argument as to why that I'm wrong and you're right, chuck it in the comment section. I don't want to hear 20 width is better than 40 width. It's not. Take that crap to the Paradox Plaza forums, whatever, where people still play single player and don't know anything about the game. Leave it out of here. All right, thanks very much, guys. The next video is going to be on tank templates. I hope to see you then. Have a good one, guys.